All right, hey guys. One of the mistakes, I guess, of some of my lacrosse parents and goalies get caught up in is not a mistake on their part, but it's a mistake on the coach that they're working with. And I'm not just talking about a lacrosse goalie coach in this case. Uh, this week, I had an interaction with one of our parents, and they sent me some feedback that their goalie had gotten from their coach. And what was really fascinating was that the premise of the advice of the coach. Now, this coach, it's obvious that this coach wasn't a goalie, and this is what happens a lot with coaches who deal with goalies, and not just in field lacrosse. I would add this happens in ice hockey and it happens in soccer as well. But what coaches wish, you know, would happen is that when their offense loses the ball and then the other team brings the ball down the field and then the midfielders mess up and the ball comes in the defensive zone and then the long poles like screw it up and they try to cover the offensive player too far out and they get beat and the ball comes in and then they shoot on the goalie and the ball goes in the net. The coach, what does the coach see? What's the last thing in the coach's mind? It's the goalie. And it's the goalie not making the save. And then what that turns into is a coach going, God, I wish my goalie was just faster. Okay, so then the coach goes, well, how do they get faster? And the coach doesn't always know. And later this week, I've got a video going out for our Athlete OS members. So if you haven't subscribed, head on over to theathleteos.com and subscribe to our newsletter over there. Get any of the freebies and you'll get on the list. The idea is so that coach just wishes you were faster. So then you go to the coach, well, what do I need to do to play better? And the coach lays out some advice that they think, on the surface it makes sense that it should make you faster, but it doesn't. And so in this case, the coach was like, oh, you should use like one of those reaction balls, right? That why? Well, the thought is like, okay, if the ball takes a quick reaction, then it's going to make me like quicker to get there. That's not true. The other advice that a coach may give a goalie, kind of ill-advised, is that they should do something to make seeing a lacrosse ball harder. And this is some of the worst advice you can give, because when we understand that a goalie, when the ball leaves a player's stick, or even before the ball leaves a player's stick, they got to see the ball, they got to know where it's going, and then they got to move in front of it. If they're having trouble with that time frame, what's really fascinating is that coaches just think, well, if we made it shorter, they'll get better. And that's not the case. The underlying issue with a goalie is one, it's almost like it's almost like you can't win in this situation, because the coach's advice, they think they're giving you the right advice, and they're the coach, right? So you can't really question the coach. But the coach is caught up in the technical, the doing of the thing. And what the goalie in most cases really needs is the goalie needs to get stronger physically to be able to execute that last part of making the save, see the ball, know where it's going, and then move in front of it. And that doesn't happen all the time. That doesn't happen by being a goalie more often. I did a video a couple years ago about how it's rare that a lacrosse goalie becomes a better athlete by being a lacrosse goalie. When you think about it, a goalie is like, all the players out there, like in a practice, many times the goalie is the one that's not moving the most. And I will, the exception to that is like if your goalie is like the only goalie on the team and they're running drills, like shooting drills over and over and over again. Yeah, the goalie's getting a rep every rep, but if there's 8 kids in line, he's getting a rep every rep, and those kids are getting 1 out of every 8 reps, if that makes sense. But the truth is that the goalie rarely becomes a better athlete by being just a goalie. And this is a kind of a catch-22. The goalie plays a lot of goalie when they're young, and then they kind of get up to speed. They're like the best goalie in the area. They're keen to play. The coaches, like, there's plenty of opportunities for them to play up or down or sideways, you name it. But the thing is that the goalie then gets a limited amount of physical interaction, and then goalies who are able to work on their physical ability and get stronger, then down the road are able to execute better. They're able to stay in front of a shooter more efficiently. They're able to move quickly because they have that maximal strength with which to apply to the stick and make a save. So for a lot of coaches, I don't I don't feel like any sort of I'm disappointed with the coach because I wish the coach knew more, and I think that's what most people wish. But for most coaches, they're either volunteers, um, they have full-time jobs, their kids are playing, all this. They come to the field, and then they got to coach what is arguably the most complicated, one of the most complicated sports to coach. Next to, I would say, next to football, American football, field lacrosse is like probably the most complicated thing to coach. You have attackmen, you have midfielders, you have defensive players, you have goalies, you have uh, all these things to teach, and you've got 10 kids on the field, uh, 10 or 11 kids on the field, but then you know it's not like hockey where you've got five and a goalie, right? So I don't begrudge a coach for not knowing everything, but I do begrudge coaches that are doling out bad advice and then not wondering if that's the correct advice. But this happens across every sport. So when I work at the Athlete OS, when we work with athletes in other programs, other sports, we see this there too. Whereas a coach will give them what they feel is the right advice, but really it just causes confusion in the form of the athlete. Because let's say the coach says to your athlete, like, "Hey, you need to do more wall ball." So now your goalie goes out there like every day and videos it every day and sends the coach video every day, like their homework. They did wall ball every single day. But then in a year, they don't get better uh, clearing. They don't get better stopping the ball, and that's hard to believe, but it can happen. And then the coach, who suffers there, the coach or the kid? The kid does, because the advice from the coach was really not the best use of their time. So what I want you to understand is that your goalie rarely is making, I would say never, is it, oh, you should make things more difficult in the cage for your goalie. Like there's a blog post out there that people send me once or twice a year, and it just makes me stick to my stomach because it suggests that the best drills you should do are all these drills that are a complete waste of time. They're not the thing that's going to improve your goalie. And I had one of my Lacrosse Goalie University members, joke with me like that I shit can basically every filler drill, and I do because your goalie needs shots, and your goalie needs most likely to get in the weight room and get in the weight room with a qualified strength and conditioning coach. That's going to make the biggest impact for them come next season. And in 90 days, in 180 days, in 360 days, you can completely change an athlete by doing that. So when coaches just don't know, I always tell my families, like, you have to be a consumer of athlete development information, and you have to look at it in a way. You have to treat this like you would a work project, that if you don't get the results you want, you're going to get fired. And I think when parents take that approach, they would look at things much more critically. And I get it, it's hard sometimes. We have these dynamics of like your kid likes a certain sport or likes a certain amount of kids, and they don't want to go elsewhere, they don't want to do this. I get it. But when your athlete wants to be better at this position, at this sport, then you have to make those decisions. So I hope this helps. All right. So by all means, head on over to lacrossegoalieuniversity.com, download all our freebies, get the goalies, cheat sheets, and the scorecards. If I can help you and work with your athlete from a distance, I would love to. So feel free to send me an email, coachedwards@lacrossegoalietips.com, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.